May I now request Mr. KrishnaKumar Natarajan, Vice Chairman NASSCOM, Chair of the NASSCOM Emerge Group, and CEO of Mindtree, to host the opening session, where we have two outstanding speakers share insights from their journey. May I request KK for you to join us on stage. May I also request Mr. Aditya Ghosh, President Indigo Airlines, and Mr. Venky Mysore, CEO Kolkata Knight Riders, to join us on stage. KK, can I hand this over to you?
Thank you so much, and good morning. When we said this session of Emerge Out will be on the theme, taking the big leap, I think it really captured the aspirations, like Som said, of emerging companies. Many of you are here. I know in the context of the slowdown, which is obviously there is a lot of media, quote unquote, press saying, is the story of the Indian IT industry over, or what's going to happen next? But the fact is, it's probably just begun. We crossed the 100 billion mark in terms of revenues, both on the export and domestic. But if you look at it, it's a $1.6 trillion industry, and we've hardly captured 16% of it, or 6% of it. And if you look at emerging technology discontinuities, be it cloud, mobility, or in terms of social media, I think opportunities are only huge. So to a large extent, I think we need to look at opportunity backwards, not necessarily get consumed by the problems which are there, which is really the sense, like so mentioned, we're getting as we engage with some of the exciting companies which are creating businesses, creating markets. It's really in that context we have two outstanding speakers here. Obviously, if you think of the whole concept of a low-cost airline, it's not something which is new. But to create a unique position in that space, create a business which has sort of been built ground up, and to that extent, not just run the business, but run a profitable business which is creating value for stakeholders. It's really unique. What is more interesting is when you realize that the person who's been very much in the thick of things and doing it is not an MBA. In fact, when we were just talking prior to this, Aditya told me that the first thing I think about is not to have people who have creative, complex thinking. I know both Som and me may not agree being part of that group, but it's a very interesting concept, saying that I think businesses can be built on passion. Businesses can be built on simple ideas. Businesses can be built on the basis of very solid execution, which is really where I think Aditya is going to share his experiences. What might be interesting to note, not only is not an MBA, but he's also not a technical person like many of us here is. He's the corporate counsel of his company, decided that from working for J. Sagar Associates, he would rather do something which is very interesting, because typically our image of lawyers is the people who, I think many of you are startups, organizations you're starting, the moment you talk to a lawyer, you only start looking at your clock, because the moment they start talking, the clock starts ticking. So from that, I think he's really decided to create a very unique businesses, which I think many of us are proud of. In fact, when I was just chatting with him, I said, from the time Indigo has sort of created thing, I don't travel by any other airlines other than Indigo. To that extent, I think it's a unique thing, and I think it's a great lesson for many of us, because I think many times we get consumed in terms of global uncertainties. Where is the market? Customers are not spending. Why is the government not extending the STPI scheme and so on? Believe me, I think those are non-issues. I think the ability to create markets, delight your customers is what creates business. And that's really what we're going to learn from Aditya. Thank you so much, Aditya, for spending your time, and now leave the floor to you.
Well, I guess the habit of looking at the clock hasn't changed. Well, as KK said, I know nothing about your business, right? I absolutely don't know. I'm not a techie. I was originally did my first degree in history, and then I became a lawyer, and then I started an airline. So I'm as far away from the IT business as possibly you can. But I do know something about the business that we do. And just to strengthen my arm, I got Raman along. Raman is our Vice President of IT, just in case you ask me a question that I just don't understand. I might find the answer for it, but I may not understand the question. So I thought I'll get Raman along. Well, thanks, Som. Thanks, KK, for having me here. It's great to be here. At Indigo, we are constantly in pursuit of excellence. And the word pursuit is very, very important, because I don't think the first day that you think that you're a success is the day that we'll start stagnating. And so there is always something that we can improve upon. So in the little next 20-25 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of our story. Many of you have probably traveled it, so you've felt, touched it and felt it as a product. But you might be able to understand a little bit more about what goes behind it, why we do certain things the way we do it, and why we don't do certain things that others do. And all I'd like is that at the end of the morning, if you can think and ask yourself the same question in many of the businesses that you have started up and that you are running, and put them through the same filter, you might come up with some very interesting answers of what you should really focus your attention on. So why did we start an airline? From business 101, why did we, or entrepreneurship 101, why did we start an airline? India is one of the most underpenetrated aircraft markets in the world. We're a country of 1 billion people. We have only 400 commercial planes in this country. The United States, with 1/3 our population, has over 7,000 commercial planes. Right? We have one plane for every 3 million Indians. Even countries like Philippines and Indonesia and China have 3 or 4 times our aircraft penetration, let alone more developed countries like North America or Northern Europe. Less than 1% of all the rail travelers in India travel by air in India all through the year, all the airlines put together. So that means if we could convert 1% of rail traffic into airlines, we will need double the airline industry tomorrow morning, right? So that's the massive opportunity that was staring back at us. Now, Indigo is part of a larger, group called the Interglobe Group, where we are all in the travel business. We are all either in the hotels business or the travel business. So it gave us a unique perspective of how things were moving in the travel and tourism space. So, it was not like, we looked into a glass sphere and we predicted the future, but we knew that, having our understanding of the travel business, that there was this massive opportunity for air travel in India. And then we struck upon the idea of starting a low-fare carrier, a low-cost carrier in India. So what did we do? We first started with our first big, bold move, which was in 2005, about 7 years ago, summer of 2005, we went and ordered 100 planes. It was the largest civil aviation order by any startup carrier anywhere in the world. And even today, it remains unbeatable. It was a big risk for us, but it was a well-calculated risk. And just to put a personal perspective to it, I was 29 years old at that time when I signed the order for a $6.5 billion aircraft order. But again, it was based on the fact that if we continue to add planes in this country for a long period of time, there would still be this massive opportunity because the economy is growing at a much faster pace, the passenger numbers are growing at a much faster pace, and even today, 6 years into the business, the demand-supply gap is actually increasing year on year. There are more number of people coming into air travel every year, and there are less number of planes come into the business. Why didn't we go and order 100 planes? Because planes are not like toothpaste. They take a long time to build. There's a long gestation period. So it's one of those rare commodities. So you take a large plane order and then you spread it over a period of 10 years. So for a long period of time, we blocked up some very, very priced slots. So some of our competitors who were 5, 6, 10 times our size when we started up, by the time they realized that this little tortoise is catching up, they couldn't go and order planes fast enough. Today, if you order a brand new Airbus A320, you'd be lucky if you got a slot in 2015, 2016. By that time, the world has changed on you. Right? So that's why, again, in your business, do you look at some unique things that you can get a hold of, that you can get a handle on, which somebody else cannot copy? And I'll come back to that in a second. So anyway, in a matter of 6 years, we've gone from one plane. We actually finished our 6 years this Saturday. So 4th of August was, we just finished our 6 years. In 6 years, we've gone from one plane, one flight a day, to 57 planes, 353 flights a day. We carry 16 million passengers a year. This year, we'll carry 18 million customers. We have carried 47 or 48 million customers till date. We fly to 32 different destinations. So it's been this incredible journey. And 72 months is not a long time. Right? Now, once we've figured out that this is the business we want to be in, which is the airline business, I think it's important for all entrepreneurs to think of yourself as to what are we really doing? What am I here for? What is the job that I'm doing? And I think a big question to ask ourselves, and we asked ourselves, is what is my one big objective? Right? What am I doing here? Right? And our one big objective was to prove that low cost is not low quality. When we started 6 years ago, and if you think of a typical low-cost carrier 6 years back, it was dirty planes, delayed flights, a schedule that was not very friendly. It was not present in the large metro cities. It was just not something that you would go to immediately out of instinct. So we wanted to be different, and the way we wanted to be different was we wanted to ensure that low cost is not low quality. And we have no shame in saying we are a low-cost carrier. Many of my friends, family friends, business friends, they come back and say, Aditya, you're crazy. You should not call yourself an LCC anymore. You're a value airline. You're a budget airline. You really pegged yourself as something being different. And I keep reminding myself, no, that's not it. I am still very much a low-cost carrier. It is very high quality, but I'm very much a low-cost carrier. And I'm very proud to be that. And that went in everything we did. Whether it was brand new planes, whether it was just a squeaky clean plane. Many of you have flown Indigo. I can almost bet my life on it that every plane that you go to is as clean as this. And we are 6 years into the business. You wouldn't know, unless you're an engineer, an aircraft engineer, which plane is 6 years old and which plane is 6 months old. And the only way to tell the difference is because there are some unique changes in the interior cabin, but not by the quality of the carpet or the quality of the seat or the quality of the tray table. Air-conditioned buses, queue busters, just the importance of a simple website that gets you across from point A to point B, buying a ticket quickly. When we started up, big thing was you don't serve food on board. So we took it to the other extreme. We have the widest variety of food that is available on any airline, full service or low cost, business class or economy. Then we sell the food, but our thing is, if we are selling a sandwich on board, it better be the best sandwich that you can taste. There cannot be a compromise in that quality. We may not be able to serve salmon on board, and we don't give you chocolate mousse at the end of your meal. But if we give you a tin of cookies, then those tin of cookies would be the best tin of cookies that you can taste. Marketing, and that's something I think many of you probably struggle with. It's a constant debate how much money you want to spend on advertising, how much money you want to spend on marketing. Here I'll take a pause. We spend less than 1% of our revenue, despite being such a customer-facing organization, on advertising or any form of marketing. Some of our competitors spend 10-11% of their revenues on marketing or advertising. And if advertising was a way to get airline customers, some other red-colored airline with a supermodel would have been the largest airline in the country today. Our biggest marketing and our biggest advertising is our product. Just to put it in perspective, we have about 60,000 customers who come in and fly Indigo every day. 1 out of 4 Indians flies Indigo every day. Puma, which is the large sporting brand, They have about 40 to 45,000 footfalls across all their stores in India in a year. We fly 60,000 customers a day, paid customers, not just footfalls. Right? So if we can convert those into our advertising channel, then that starts spreading the love, spreading the brand. Often innovation is something we often talk about, and I'll come back and talk about it more. But here's a classic example. Here you have an $80-90 million plane, and against it is this little ramp, which many of you are probably familiar with, which costs probably $10,000 to build. But that one simple innovation is a great customer appeal. You can take wheelchair passengers right up into the aircraft. If you have a trolley bag, if you're flying with children, if you have a heavy bag, you don't have to go up these slippery, steep steps. And it helps our boarding and deplaning process by 50%. We deplane 180 passengers from our plane in 6 minutes, 360 seconds. 180 passengers off. One of the big things, of course, is our on time. Right? That's why people fly Indigo most. Can you imagine that a plane comes in, 180 passengers on board, check-in bags, crew, cargo, catering. The plane comes in. When the chocks go on under the wheel, that's when our clock starts ticking. Right? 180 passengers. First, the ramp comes in, the door opens, paperwork gets exchanged, 180 passengers come off with their cabin baggage, check-in bags come out, cargo comes out, catering comes off, plane gets cleaned, every tray table gets cleaned, plane is vacuumed, the carpets are vacuumed, catering goes back on, people start arriving, their check-in bags start arriving, cargo starts loading, the engineers check the plane, the pilot goes down, walks around the plane to see if there are any visible issues with the plane. People come in, seat belts, hat racks close, doors close, ramps pull off, check-in shocks come off in 30 minutes. On any given day, our fastest turns are about 18 to 20 minutes. Right? So it takes clockwork precision, and it takes a lot of innovation. So the point I'm trying to make is, as Som said, or as KK said actually, the idea of an airline is nothing new. There are hundreds of thousands of airlines around the world. Tens of millions of people travel by air every month. So how do we take something which is as ordinary as getting into the aircraft and do something innovative with it, which has a direct business impact? So often we make the mistake of chasing that $1 billion idea. In the airline business, it's 1,000 $1 ideas that makes us who we are. So why are we proud to be a low-cost carrier? What is the secret behind our success? Well, one of them is just sticking to the basics. Often we make a business plan, and once we get a little successful, we think we can bend the wind. So we start doing unique new things, which start straying from just being creative and innovative to trying to do something so different that it takes you away from the basics that got you there. For us, we think of three very, very simple things. Flying our planes on time, keeping the whole experience courteous and hassle-free in everything that we touch, and consistently coming back and offering lower fares. Now for us, what's important is these three things, these three pillars of Indigo are more an internal brand for us than it is an external brand. And that's the critical difference between Indigo and anybody else. For us, on-time flights is of course important, but it's also on-time meetings, and on-time salaries, and on-time promotions, and on-time recruitment, and on-time presentations, and on-time increments. Right? Hassle-free is not just hassle-free customer service, but is it a hassle-free place to work? We have the least number of employees per aircraft. We have less than 100 employees per aircraft, whereas the national carrier has 450 employees per aircraft. Many of our competitors have 2-3 times the number of employees per aircraft. Yet, being the youngest airline in the country, today we are the world's fastest growing low-cost carrier. And the only reason that can happen is when people feel secure and stable where they are. It's very, very important whether you're a four people company or a 6,000 people company like us, or some very, very large companies with 200,000 people in it, whether that spirit of entrepreneurship, or at least that's what I believe, the spirit of entrepreneurship that got you started, is it being translated to every small employee in your organization? It's easier said than done. We are in a unique business. Tomorrow, let's say the most important customer walks in through your door, right? You've got a really big deal that you're negotiating. You're talking to your most important customer. I can bet my life you'll be there personally negotiating that deal. When the most important customer travels Indigo, the senior most person that they ever meet is a check-in agent, a ramp staff, or a flight attendant. I can never do a webcast to all my employees in one shot because there's someone always flying, or always on a layover, or always in an airport, or always doing something else. Less than 10% of our employees are in one location. For 50% of our employees, their office is just the plane. That throws up some unique challenges of how to reach out to people, how to keep them motivated, how does a check-in agent in Agartala feel the same way as a pilot in Dubai, how does somebody in Cochin see the same future and the dreams as I do as the CEO of the company. So if you think you have challenges with people, think again. Right? But what doesn't change is if each one of those people at Indigo can feel like the president of the company, if each one of those people can feel that they are as much an owner of this airline as I am, and I'm not talking employee stock options, that's the easier thing to do. In spirit, do they feel entrepreneurial as much as you do? I'll give you a tool at the end of this as to what has worked for us. For us, basic things are get the network right, get the schedule right, fly all over the country, get a person from point A to point B. After 6 years, we only fly to 32 destinations. Some of our competitors, and every one of our competitors is a smaller airline than us today. We are the largest airline in the country. Flies to 2-3 times the number of destinations in this country. Right. If you are in Gurgaon, or if you are traveling out of Delhi or Bombay, do you really care whether Jhumri Talaiya is connected to Raipur or not? You don't. You want to know as a customer driving to the airport that you'll have an Indigo plane flying to a destination that you want to fly to, it'll be a convenient schedule for you, and so on and so forth. Opening up a lot of different destinations is great for my ego, very bad for business. Always before making a decision between a good idea and a great idea, that filter should be placed. That whether it is good for your ego to do this, is it good for your ego to make a newspaper splash, or is it good for business? Is it good for your ego to advertise, or is it good for business? Is it good for your ego to have a big office, or good for your business? And so on and so forth. Simple things. And so if you see any of these things, none of this is rocket science. Getting the schedule right, flying the planes on time, keeping the fares low. None of this is rocket science. But in my business, which is probably the most written about business in newspapers, you've seen how many times people get it wrong. And some very, very intelligent people get it wrong. Because I believe that we start straying from what the basics are. What really got you there? And what is it that's going to take you forward? Let me talk about on time for a second. On time has become our mantra. That's our advertising. That's the reason why people come back and fly us. We're so obsessed behind it. Everybody in the organization is aligned behind that one thing. It's very important for teams to know where their goal is. Imagine if you had a football pitch without 2 goalposts on either side. People would be great at passing the ball around, but they just wouldn't know what they're trying to do at the end of the day. And I'm sure Venky will have many things to say about the sport. So for us, one of our biggest goals is getting our planes out on time. We delay on a daily basis at an average, out of the 353 flights we operate, maybe 2 or 3 flights beyond 15 minutes. And now to put some extra pressure on us, we're the only airline that measures on time electronically without any human intervention. So when you send that status SMS to our call center, or when you call up the call center and you get a time that the plane is 16 minutes delayed, I, as the president of the company, have exactly the same access to that data. Or put it the other way around, you have the same access to the same data that the president of the company has. No human intervention at all. Every other airline in this country writes it by hand on the ramp. Oh, it's a 10:15, let me write 10:10. Maybe. I don't know if they do it or not. Right. But that is that tremendous pressure, and good pressure, and that good nervousness. Every time a plane is delayed beyond 15 minutes, every flight, there are about 80, 90 people in the company who will get to know it instantly, including on my BlackBerry. Including how many passengers there were, which is the sector, where are they flying, what was the scheduled time of departure, how many minutes was the flight delayed by, and an analysis of those minutes. How much was ATC, how much was the pilot asked for an extra fuel, there was a sick passenger on board, whatever it might be. Again, these are nitty-gritties of our business, which translate into good customer service. Technical dispatch reliability. That is a measure of how many minutes was your plane ever delayed beyond 15 minutes due to any technical reason. From the time we started to now, and we have flown hundreds of thousands of flights, our technical dispatch reliability is 99.93%. There is no other airline on the planet which has a better technical dispatch reliability than Indigo. Can you imagine 6 years ago that a low-cost airline out of India would have a better technical dispatch reliability than Singapore Airlines and Emirates and Etihad and British Airways and any other airline on this planet? It's just a question of setting a goal and then aligning everything around it to get there. Many of you are starting up businesses in India, maybe small businesses, maybe medium businesses. Just set yourself a few goals that we think we can be absolutely better than the best at. And we are constrained by the fact that there can be no 99.99999% in safety. It has to be 100%, every flight, all the time. We are in a very serious profession, and we take that very, very seriously. There is something seriously unnatural about a metal tube carrying 180 human beings flying at 800 kilometers per hour through the sky. And for that to happen every day, 353 takeoffs and landings, day after day, year after year, without any incident, takes a lot to come together. What are the challenges we face? I guess this is something you're not complaining about if you're exporting IT services. Whether it's the dollar, whether it's the fuel, whether it's the Indian economy. Now, how do we overcome these challenges? And I believe, I've often said it, I've said it in various public forums, that as an airline CEO, I have a birthright to complain about fuel prices and airport charges. But I also believe that that's not the solution. I'll give you a couple of solutions which have worked very well for us, and I truly believe that it works for many different organizations. The first is that our customers have to be our brand ambassadors. Right? One of the things I told you Saturday was our 6th anniversary. So yesterday, which is Monday, was it Monday yesterday? Day before yesterday. We did something unique. And just to put our money where our mouth is. We chose an employee of the year. We have employees of the month. So first time we instituted an award called the Employee of the Year, and we have various parameters. So then the Employee of the Year's name gets announced to the whole company. But we took his photograph and we have pasted his photograph on one of our planes for the next 1 year, so that all the 18 million customers who fly on Indigo knows who our true brand ambassador is. We've taken the face of our Employee of the Year and put it on our plane, so that every customer who walks in through the plane looks at this next to the door and he sees who our Employee of the Year is. And similarly, customers are our brand ambassadors. We don't run a frequent flyer program, yet 50% of our customers are repeat customers. The second thing is, as I touched upon this earlier, I think it's not enough in the business to be competitive. We are all competing. We are all competitive. It's not enough to be competitive. What makes the difference is there something that we can do which is a unique structural advantage which somebody else cannot copy, or at least cannot copy for a few years or easily. For us, for example, was not only the first 100 aircraft, but fuel is our biggest cost. So we last year went and ordered another 180 planes, which are now the new Neos, which looks like the 320, but they actually have a different engine. And that different engine has a 15% less fuel burn for us. And this is 5 years in advance. This plane got announced for the first time in December of 2010. In January of 2011, 5 weeks after announcement of this brand new plane, we had placed a $15 billion order, which will start delivering 5 years from now. But we felt that is a unique structural advantage where somebody else can't copy it straight away. Today, we ordered the planes in January. By June, when it was announced at the Paris Air Show last year, Airbus had sold 1,000 planes. So that means that if somebody came and thought, what a great idea, let me go and now order these Neos, today the earliest Neo delivery slot is 2021. Right? So in your business, can you create something unique and structural, which is unique only to your company, not just to your industry, that somebody else cannot copy? And all of this, we don't do it for the love of God. We do this because we are here to make money. We do this because we want to be here to become bigger. We're the only airline where the market share has grown. Today we're the largest airline in the country. We're the youngest, yet 1 out of 4 Indians travels Indigo every day. Best on time, least number of cancellations. And that's just because we are keeping it simple. And there is, I think, a lot of merit to keeping things simple, sticking to the plan, innovate to get to that result, don't stray from the course, and just keep coming back and pounding on it every day. Because it's those little details, at least in my business, I don't know about yours, that makes that unique difference between us and anybody else. And finally, why are we able to do what we are able to do? Why are 96 employees per aircraft at Indigo able to do what we are able to do, which others have not been able to do for almost 60 years? That's because of the sheer passion that all the 5,750 people come to work at with Indigo. It's a very, very important thing, and that's the tool I'd like to leave you behind with. Every one of us at Indigo has a dream. That dream is not to make Indigo the largest airline in the world. That dream is something else. That dream is different for different people. My dream is to send my kids to the right school. Somebody else's dream is to buy a house. Somebody else's dream is to send their parents on a holiday. Somebody else's dream is to have a retirement plan. Somebody else's dream is to buy a scooter. Somebody else's dream is to lose weight. Somebody else's dream is to play the guitar. Somebody else's dream is to speak better, get married. Every day that we come to work at Indigo, our one measure is, have we got 1 inch closer to our dream? if all 5,750 of us get closer to our dream because of the time we spend at Indigo, Indigo takes care of itself. Otherwise, there is no reason why many of our competitors fly the same planes, they go to the same airports, they fly the same passengers, we charge them a lower fare, we pay the same fuel bills, same airport charges, at least we pay for it, same salaries. Yet, we are able to do what we are able to do. That's because 5,750 people are chasing their dream every day at Indigo. And that is a solution that you can apply to a 2-member company or a 200,000 people company. And that, in a sense, is the Indigo story.
Thank you so much, Aditya.
Thank you.
We now leave the floor open for a couple of questions. I'm sure many of you are done. Yeah, we'll just leave the floor open for a few questions.
Yes, there's one there, I think.
Can you pass on a few mic? Yeah.
Thank you, Rajiv. Fascinating story, Aditya. Quick question for you, a couple of questions actually. Can you talk a little bit more about price sensitivity of demand?
Oh, yeah.
One. And the second one is capital intensity, which is an integral part of your industry. In a world where capital is getting scarcer, how does that impact you?
Yeah, so, well, obviously, and we were talking about it this morning, we are in a very, very price sensitive business. And here, products get priced by the minute, literally by the minute. So there is an army of people and a lot of analytics that we are constantly trying to see where, as to what flight should fill up to what extent, what's the cost of running that flight, and therefore what is the price. Obviously, we must be doing something right, because of which we are able to sell above our cost, which is why we are able to make money. We became profitable 4 years ago, and we've remained profitable ever since. But I think the trick to it lies elsewhere. The trick to it is just keeping your own cost much lower than the competitor. And that, in our business, our secret to our success is keeping our cost down to the absolute bare bones without compromising on quality. And the other thing is that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I have a great problem of running businesses quarter to quarter. I know some of you are listed companies probably, some of you will list at some point of time. I have a fundamental problem with running quarter to quarter businesses. And probably one of the reasons why we are not listed. Because I think it takes the focus away from management on trying to do things which are good for the business in the long run. Now, I'm not discounting the rigor that it brings, and that it should. We still do our results on a monthly basis. We still report it to our shareholders and all of those things. But just making business decisions based on just a quarter-to-quarter earning, I think there's a problem with that. But if you're looking at this as a marathon, then you are able to kind of go through the ups and downs. And in our business, in my business, there are tons of ups and downs. Every 15 days, the fuel price changes. As far as capital intensive is concerned, yes, it is a very capital intensive business. But for any business, I think before starting up, and that is something that we did for ourselves, we did put together a certain amount of money, and we said to ourselves, if we run out of this money, we're not going to put good money behind bad money. Thankfully, the business has gone off well. We never had to ask for $1 more, and we were able to return all our money to our shareholders. So it's gone well for us. But I think the trick lies in startup well prepared. Capital is one of them. Resources may be another. Human resources may be the third thing. But the other piece, while running, is to keep your cost really low. Just like when you're running a marathon, how much your body weighs has a big impact on whether you'll make it to the finishing line or not.
Hey, hi, this is Manish from Forrester Research. Wonderful presentation, Aditya. You emphasize a lot on innovation, right? And I completely agree with you. I'll be keen to hear how technology is helping you bring innovation to the business. Is technology helping you create new revenue streams? If yes, how? Maybe Raman can help pitch in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and during the tea break, you can definitely spend some time with Raman. We have to look at innovation in several different buckets. One is simple operational things that happen every day on the line. Second is how do we make up, we are obsessed with technology to the extent that either it can enhance our revenue in some way. So we use a lot of innovative technology today to predict pricing, but that's something all airlines do. The other thing which Raman, 90% of his time is spent on is how do we create efficiencies within the organization to bring down red tape, to bring down, obstacles, to bring down cost. So anything where we are able to suck out cost by just increasing efficiency, productivity. I'll tell you a simple thing. Every Monday morning, every Friday evening, all my skip levels, that means the direct reports of my direct reports, have to send an email to my direct reports saying these are the 2 or 3 things which are bureaucratic right now. It could be anything. The printer's not working. It was something else. Now, that forces us, and I truly believe that if you try and solve the problem of the lowest guy, it creates a chain reaction across the organization. And then necessity is the mother of invention, right? So then it starts forcing you to think, oh, I need a solution for this. And that's helped us a lot. But, I don't want to make light of the fact that there is a lot that one can learn in my business from just staring at a check-in line, from just looking at the mundane and saying, hey, if only this could be done slightly differently, we would be able to take out 2-3 more minutes out of it. I think that gentleman was...
Yeah, here's the mic.
Yeah, please go.
Hi. Sorry, just 1 minute. Can you elaborate a little bit on the point you made about communicating your enthusiasm to all your employees, given that they are not physically around? You talked about stock options, then you did not kind of go into it, whether you do it or not. You talked about, chasing your dream, and everybody has a different dream. How do you sort of communicate the enthusiasm as you grow further?
Yeah, so, one, Sanjay, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Sanjay, one, it's a fact of life that, 40% of my personal time every week is spent just with people. Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you will be able to afford that kind of time, but I think it makes a big impact. Number 2, stock options are, of course, a good thing, but anybody who gives you more stock options is then better. And especially if you're not a listed company, then it doesn't really mean very much. So our trick is to see whether, as I said, this whole thing of whether we are being able to get closer to our own personal dream. So simple things we have various forums, and I'll go through it quickly because I'm running into Venky's time. Whether I have a blog where I'll share everything. We have a protocol. Anything new that happens, anything confidential that happens in the company, once we're able to tell one other person, it'll first go to the employees, then it'll go to on our Facebook site, then it'll go out to our customers, and then it'll go to the press. Right? Simple thing. We have employee get-togethers in all our different destinations once a year. Now that means once every 2 weeks. We have 32 destinations. So average about once in every 2 weeks, we have an employee get-together in each and every one of our destinations where I go personally. And there are loaders there are cabin crew there are pilots there's me, there's our vice president of HR, whatever. And we had, I'll give you a classic example. We celebrated our 6th anniversary on Sunday. So Saturday was all the leadership team flew out to all the different destinations and we cut a cake with our employees. We didn't have one central party. On Sunday, we did have a get-together and we did have a party. The party started at 3 in the afternoon and went on till 11 o'clock at night. And it was continuously, one after the other, without a break, skits, plays, songs, dances, drama, speeches by employees from various parts of the country. No outside talent. Rock shows, skits, dances, anything. So there's just a whole bunch of things we do. We probably spend an inordinate amount of time doing that, but we've also seen an inordinate amount of results out of it as well.
Being on time is important, so I'm going to have to conclude this session.
That thing is flashing.
Okay, the last question, but we need to end this,
Yeah. My question
Remember,
is that...
I'm standing between you and Shah Rukh Khan. So
No, but Shah Rukh is happy to have you as his opening act.
Please go ahead.
Okay. You talked about keeping costs low. A lot of companies try to keep costs low by keeping the salaries low.
Yes.
I am a software entrepreneur, and I have seen it in companies I've worked in.
And I think that's a mistake.
So, I mean, what is your approach to that?
So, we pay the same salaries as anybody else. We actually pay, we've gone 6 years, and you know the airline business, you don't have to just open the newspaper to find out. But we've gone 6 years without any salary freeze, without a pay cut, without any retrenchment. Every month we've hired about 100 new people for the past 6 years. Increments, promotions, appraisals. I think hitting salaries is a bad idea. Mm-hmm. What you can do is look at efficiencies to reduce the number of people. Look at efficiency so that less number of people can do more jobs. They have more complex jobs. They can chase their dreams. You can give them bigger responsibilities. But cutting pay, I think I'm sure it helps in the short term, but I think it just has a cancerous effect in the morale of the company, and it's never worked for us.
Great answer. Thanks.
Thank you, Aditya. I'd certainly love you to be here, felicitate some of the people whom we are going to felicitate. And I'm sure Aditya is going to be available when we break for tea, so certainly get hold of him for other questions. I think in our business of technology, many times the big sort of question before us is, how do we get into new markets? How do we create new markets? I think Som talked about how technology is really democratizing the whole process, that increasingly we have a lot of consumers interacting with us. So the whole issue of how do we create traction with consumers, how do we create a brand which appeals to consumers is very, very important. It's really in that context we're fortunate enough to have Venky, as he's known, here. Of course, Venky's forte has been to create new markets. Like many of you, I'm sure, who have lived in the US, he came back when he saw India as an opportunity after living in the US for several years. And to create a market which was entirely new, the whole market of insurance, which was a very much closed market, just open to LIC. And here is someone who has lived in the US for 20 years, coming in creating a new market, which is life insurance for MetLife. He did that very successfully and then ran the insurance business for Sun Life. Before he said, I've done a lot of it, now let me create an entirely new market, which is a brand created with the market of forts and franchising. So it's certainly a fascinating story, but here I must just share a small anecdote with you. I think as entrepreneurs and business people, many of us are expected to be very persevering. We shouldn't really give up. So when Venky used to live in Bangalore, that's when I thought maybe I should learn from Venky in terms of how to create markets, how to get consumer insights. So I really started playing golf with him. Several sessions of golf pass, and every time I kept asking Venky this, he said, yeah, I'll tell you. So finally one day he told me, KK, can I tell you one thing? I said, yes, I'm going to get my insight. He said, I think rather than trying to build an IT business, you must sort of talk to the golf unions and ask them to make the handicap bigger, because there's no other golf course which will sort of support the handicap you're playing at. But sort of me being me, I'm persevering. I'm going to learn from Venky on how to create markets and consumer insights. Venky, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Check. Well, first of all, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and KK, thank you so much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity. And Som, thank you so much again. We go back, as KK put it, I think he's being very modest. I think as a golfer, in terms of preparation and how he comes prepared with that little bag for all his all the balls that he has and balls that he purchases in Singapore. So we can go on about golf if. But you know, when I was asked to join this this session, and I'm always excited about this because it's a great learning experience because I always take away more than I'm able to give. But I suppose, given the recent events with the fact that our team lifted the IPL trophy, there's a certain amount of novelty that is surrounding this. And so I was trying to formulate in my mind, and as KK mentioned, I've spent many years. I had a very long 25-year career in financial services. So I left for the US and MBA, and then went to work for MetLife. I was with MetLife for 21 years, half in the US, and then I came to Indonesia, Hong Kong, before I came back to India in search of the opportunity when the market was about to open, almost year 2000. And so the first question people always ask me, and I'm sure many of you have this on your mind, is, what is this from financial services to insurance, or rather from insurance to KKR? How did this come about? So I think I should take a few seconds to tell you a little bit about that. When I left for the US and came back here and everything, I moved to Mumbai. And one of the organizations that Som and I are a part of, which is the YPO, actually is the Young Presidents Organization, some of you might know, has had a lot to do with this big change. Because, as you know, we have two owners for KKR. I mean, you know the famous one. The other owner is a YPO. And I got to know him when I moved to Mumbai a little bit, and I was just professionally I got to know him. And in one of the conversations about 2.5 years ago is when something led to the other, and I started talking a little bit about my cricketing background, because as most kids in India, I thought I would make it to the big grade. So I took some concrete steps towards that because I played for Madras University, and then I was in the Tamil Nadu Ranji squad. When the NBA came calling, US came calling, and coming from a middle-class South Indian family, my father at least had no doubts where I was supposed to go. And he says, "That's where you're going?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I suppose he was right. And I took off. And so that endeavor came to a bit of a halt. But so when I shared this story with Jay Mehta, he gave me this look as if saying, I've known you for this long, I didn't know this part of it. And just to give you context, then he said, "We've got to have lunch next week." And I said, "Sure." So he comes to me and he says, and this was, many of you know, this was 2 years ago. So it's been almost 2 years that I've been with KKR. At that particular point in time, this was the end of IPL 3. And you may all know that KKR was probably the worst performing team in IPL and was the only team which had not qualified for playoffs at that time. All the other 7 teams had qualified. So the owners were not only disappointed, but tired, I think, exhausted and beaten up. And so they apparently had this conversation saying, we've got to professionalize this whole franchise, bring in a CEO and all that. This was one of the conversations apparently they had on a flight. And lo and behold, I tell my story, and then they decide, or at least there's this proposition on the table. And before I knew what was happening, next day, 24 hours later, we're sitting in Shah Rukh's home and having a discussion about the possibility. And my wife is petrified because she's saying, "What are you doing?" My kids are like, what's holding you back? Come on, let's do it. So I don't know what to do, but here we are. But it's been fascinating, and I was trying to draw some lessons out of what we have done in the last 2 years, because fortunately, by God's grace, first year we qualified for the playoffs and we qualified for Champions League. In the second year, we won the championship. And from a business perspective, this March 2012, we announced that we are the first IPL team to have broken even and have become profitable. So it's been a fantastic ride, but I was trying to draw some lessons out of that. And I had made some notes. And I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about passion. I'm going to talk about vision. I'm going to talk about preparation, and obviously talk about execution and the rest of the fun part of it and motivation. But, obviously, Aditya has covered all of these things. So I also came with plan B, so you can choose now what to do. Plan B was to show you a lot of the cricket action that has taken place, a lot of videos of after parties and player interaction. So if you want that, we can have a party here and move on. But I figured for this audience, that would be really shortchanging you. But when I took over this thing and we talked about passion, and there are so many entrepreneurs here, and somehow I've had this knack of going after opportunities where my bosses invariably tell me in every situation that I've taken, saying this business cannot go any further down, so the only direction it can go is up. So you have a great opportunity in front of you. So I heard the same thing from my owners as well. But I want to narrate a small story to you, and I think there's a little bit of a lesson in that. And this was a true story that someone shared with me years ago. See, in 1981, there was an Australian by the name of Cliff Young who became a celebrity. And some of you may have read or heard this story. I've narrated it a few times. But Cliff Young was an Australian who chose to participate in a marathon that is run in Australia between the cities of Sydney and Melbourne. And we all know 26-mile marathon, but this is a 600-mile marathon, 600 mile. And so, people who participate in this are world class. I mean, Olympics is going on, so you know what it takes. World class runners. But Cliff Young was an Australian, and he decided, I'm going to run this marathon. And there were a few unique things about him. One was he was 81 years of age. He'd never run a marathon in his life before. He was a farmer. He didn't even know how to dress. He was wearing this bib overalls and galoshes and that type of stuff. So people asked him, so what qualifies you to run? He says, I've got this huge farm. Obviously in Australia you have this huge acres and acres. So he said, I chase my cows on my feet. So I'm running every day. I don't have a horse. So I'm running. So I think I can run. I said, okay. So they said, fine, nothing to lose. So 600 mile obviously is run over several days. And so people started running, and Cliff Young participated, and halfway through, as you can imagine, this is run over several days. And media started following, and halfway through they said, okay, what's happening to Cliff Young? And actually, he was doing better than most people expected. He was sort of in the middle of the pack. And then there was more media attention because he was actually gaining ground. And people said, wow, there's a story emerging here. Long story short, Cliff Young finishes number 1 in the race. And he beat the rest of the group by a day and a half. True story. You can Google it. Unfortunately, Cliff Young passed away a few years ago. But they found out something very interesting, which goes to the core of what I want to tell you in my own story, is they said, what made it happen? And what they found out was very interesting. Professional runners who run this type of race are trained to run for 18 hours a day, and they sleep for 6 hours. And frankly, when I thought about that, I said, if ever I could run for 6 hours, I'll probably sleep 18. But that's how they train. You know what they found out? Was nobody told Cliff Young that he was supposed to sleep. And so he kept running. And people said, this is crazy, this is humanly impossible. But that's where I think the point I want to make is, what you think is humanly impossible is all here. And I think entrepreneurs like us, who have all taken that big leap, like I did 2 years ago, is ignorance was bliss. I didn't know enough. So when I jumped into this business, people said, what are you doing in this? They're all usually people who are ex-cricketers or whatever. And as we always say in marketing, there are 2 religions in this in India. One is cricket and one is Bollywood, and we had a combination of the 2 in the team, so there was a lot of attention for us. So I was sitting there and saying, okay, so what exactly have we done? But it's about attitude again. Not knowing enough was a big plus. Not knowing enough was a big plus for me. And I think when we talk about innovation and when we talk about entrepreneurship as new initiatives, I think people who have succeeded, there's a common thread there. That they just said, I believe in this because I have the passion to do this, and I'm going to do it. But I think passion will take you that far. I think the visible side of what's happening there. I was also fortunate that when I came on board 2 years ago, as many of you who follow IPL would know, that we had the opportunity to clean house. Okay. So we had to make a decision. And I didn't have a think tank there to make a decision on what is to be done. And the owners, as I said, were too tired. They said, it's your baby. Do what you have to do. It was a plus for me. A lot of people have asked me, what are the things that worked in your favor? I said, non-interfering owners, mainly because they were too tired. They were in the background. They said, do it. But I give them a lot of credit. So we had an opportunity to go into an auction and rebuild the team. This is where I want to talk about the second part, because I came across a formula for success. It's very difficult to reduce anything to a formula. But I like that because I like the logic of it. It said success equals desire plus activity knowledge plus action. And I said I had the desire, I had the passion, that's why I made the change. Then it was about activity knowledge. So you said, how do you gain enough about this business that I'm getting into to be able to be the best I can be? And so I started preparing for this auction. And I said, listen, we're going to clean house. We were the only team, probably the only team, if I recall, who didn't retain anybody. We chose not to retain anyone and rebuild through the auction. Some teams retained 1, some teams retained 4, etc. So when we started doing the auction, I had never been to an auction before. In fact, I hadn't even followed the auction on TV that much. So I said, I've got to get prepared for this. So I actually got videotapes of auctions from the previous one and sat down, and I couldn't sleep. I was so excited about what was happening. And I spent hours and hours just watching what's the dynamics of how this is going. And then it was about getting our coaching staff to change their mindset in terms of building a team. Because usually what would happen, I would even sit with our owners and say, so what are your views on who we should pick? And everyone takes a sheet of paper and writes these names, and gives it to me. And I said, believe it or not, there are 9 other teams who probably have the same names on their list as well. And it goes crazy. So I actually ended up, some of you might have read this book, Moneyball, and they made this into a movie, and I had read that a few years ago. So it had inspired me to think analytically about building a championship team. And so I actually went out and hired a software firm out of Chennai to build me a bidding system. And I said, I want a bidding system because I want to start doing decision trees, because everything comes at random. So you have no idea which player is being picked. So if I'm interested in that player, then what is my combination I want around that player? Step 1. Then if I go to the second player, etc. And if it's not that player, someone else comes in. So we had decision trees coming out of our ears. But they built it beautifully in a way where there was a logic to it. So there was an interesting product idea there on auction strategy. And most of the teams are using it now. They used it in the second auction. And so we started doing this. So I said, no names. It's only positions. So we're going to do it through positions and work through that. And see how the whole thing cascades. So when I actually shared this with the owners, he's like, wow, this is too complicated. We never did anything like this. I think it's going to be too confusing. The outcome of that was, subsequently, they were so impressed with it, they said, listen, one thing I've decided now, Shahrukh told me this, he said, I shouldn't come to the auction. Because I know if I come, I'll confuse you. This is terrific planning. You go execute. And that's what we did. And when we did that, a lot of people remember that we had some high ticket picks. Your boy from Delhi, Gautam Gambhir, was the first pick, and we paid $2.4 million. In fact, the first 3 names that came out of the auction were picked by KKR, and I was running the auction. Gautam Gambhir was number 1, Yusuf Pathan was number 2, and Jacques Kallis was number 3. And these are the 3 that I was interested in, but I wasn't fixated on that. I said, at a certain price, if I get it, fine. As it turned out, we picked the 3. They thought we had gone completely crazy, because out of $9 million purse, we had spent $5.7 million in 40 minutes. And there's 2 days of auction left. But we had a plan. And the plan was the Moneyball strategy. And it was about identifying players through homework. And this is the preparation part that I'm talking about, the activity knowledge and the homework. Because I had put scouts in almost every country. And I'd spoken with existing coaches, ex-coaches, basically to say, tell me who's the emerging talent. So through that, we picked James Pattinson, who was not playing for Australia, but now he plays all 3 forms. And he gave a lot of trouble to the Indian team when the Indian team went there. For base price of 100,000. Nobody touched him, but we picked him at 100. Ryan Tendeshkata. A lot of people can't even pronounce his name. But he's one who has played the most T20s of any player in the world. And he goes around the world playing T20s. Okay. Most recent pick was Marchand Delang. Marchand Delang was not even on the auction list. We had done the homework. He's the fastest bowler in the world today, 152. We had done the homework, and when I sent a note to IPL saying I want him on the auction list, they wrote to Cricket South Africa, and he's a farm boy. They contacted him, and he said, are you sure they want me? And they said yes, and put his name, 50,000 base price. Nobody had heard of him. We picked him. After we picked him, South Africa has picked him for all 3 forms. On debut, 8 wickets against Sri Lanka. So we had done a lot of homework to prepare ourselves. Sunil Narayan, I'd seen him when he came for the Champions League last year. Of course, another team had also seen him, so the price went up, but nevertheless, nobody else bid for him. And he was our most valuable player. So I'm talking about preparation. I'm talking about putting in that extra effort to really focus on and going towards what we want to do here. As part of preparation, mock sessions. We've done all kinds of mock sessions on auction. And we knew exactly how another team, or almost exactly how other teams would behave. And who are the decision makers there at the table? How are they likely to look at things? So there were some tactics around this too. I think the next thing I want to talk about is culture, because as we get into building this, from a cultural standpoint, we basically said, see, one of the key success factors for a franchise sport is the fan base. And I think this is where IPL is being tested, but we've covered a lot of ground, because suddenly, as a fan, you're being asked to support a city team, and some of your favorite players are playing for some other city team. So you become almost schizophrenic, in saying that, oh yeah, when we played against Pune, Saurav Ganguly playing for Pune versus Calcutta in Eden Gardens, and Dada comes, hey Dada, oh no, it's KKR, suddenly, so the crowd is going nuts suddenly. So this is part of the phase of it. But then it's about brand. See, when we looked at the KKR brand, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is Shah Rukh, obviously. And he's solidly behind us, and we have a huge advantage with that, no doubt. But then what are we saying to the fan? What can I say to you to say, you're my customer as a fan, and I say, I want you to follow KKR. So what all the IPL teams have said, whichever one you're following, has a tagline and has a music video. And ours is called Korbo Lorbo Jeetbo. In Bengali, Korbo Lorbo Jeetbo means Korbo is will do, Lorbo is will fight, and Jeetbo is will win. So for me, I'm saying, how can I make that as a promise to the fan? Will win? This is a sport. In fact, the other day we were trying to sit down and remember, I learned the hard way that only number one is remembered. We were trying to remember who was number two in the last 5 years, and it's very difficult to remember. So only the champions are remembered. So in that context, how do you make a promise? So whichever brand yours is, what is the promise you're making to the customer? So I said, we can't. For example, we have a music video which goes, Shah Rukh dancing, Korbo, Lorbo, Jeetbo, and all that. And other teams have various things, Duniya Hila Denge, this thing, that thing, Chargers and all that. So the way this IPL works, as you know, is that when there is a good thing that we do, our batsman hits a 4, then our song plays. We take a wicket, our song plays. If we lose a wicket, the opposition's song plays. So I said, if you have lost a game, how can you say Duniya Hila Denge? Or Korbo Lorbo Jeetbo? You just can't. And if that's the promise I'm making to the fan, I said, there's going to be a disconnect somewhere. So I said, we've got to change the proposition. And the proposition which we changed, which we have turned into a marketing campaign right now, is about what KKR stands for. And we're basically saying, it is our attitude. And our attitude is about Zid and about Ziddi. We had a big brainstorming campaign, and we said, this is who we are. What does that mean? We're very hard-headed. We'll never give up. So we'll lose, but we'll be up in a flash. We'll dust ourselves off, and we're ready to fight. So what I can promise you is that is KKR. That's the culture that we want to build in the organization. So I can't promise you victory. We'll try, and we might win along the way. But one thing I can promise you is that we'll never give up. So we've changed our whole team around that. And in the process, by the way, just to tell you about passion and my own personal commitment, is that I started learning Bengali. In fact, I have a tutor who's an elderly Bengali lady. I live in Mumbai, and this lady comes and teaches me. So for those of you bongs in the room, আমি বাংলা শিখছি একটু একটু বলতে পারি. So it was the media there appreciated the fact that I was trying. And I wasn't doing it for that sake, but I like languages. I speak all the 4 South Indian languages and Hindi. And I love it. So when that passion is there, it will drive you to different things. I think the last part I want to cover is about execution. I think in execution, we have so many ideas that have fallen flat on its face, but we've seen simple ideas being picked up I mean, when you're talking about the ramp, I've always thought that that's a great idea. And it's a simple idea, but someone has actually gone out and done it. I mean, we have climbed down, up and down. Even now when I take a Lufthansa to Frankfurt, for some reason, flights coming from India are always parked in way out there, it seems like. And you have to climb down the stairs and go. But this is always appreciated because it makes it much easier. You have a hand carry, you can pull, or wheelchairs or whatever. So execution is really, really critical. So as part of the culture, we decided on time, and I was noticing what Aditya was doing when the clock was winding down here. He finished on time. And for a team, a cricket team, which is wrapped around Bollywood, when you talk time, I mean, you might as well forget it. I mean, Shah Rukh has a great clock in his head. He's exactly 2 hours late for anything he does. I've figured that out at least. But I haven't taken a chance of coming 2 hours late myself yet. But so talking about time just didn't make any sense. But once you start instilling that, and we started instilling 2 things as part of the culture. We said this is team KKR. This is not about an individual. In fact, we have actually separated our famous owner from this whole thing because we said, you can't dilute his brand either. For everything, if you're going to put his face in, then what are we doing? As far as the team is concerned, there's a small app that someone wrote for us on all the mobiles and everything else. There's a little calendar there with a reminder that goes team meeting 6 o'clock. It took a couple of meetings because there are some who just straggle in at 6:10 and others are all sitting there, oh wow. The one whose behavior changed dramatically was Shah Rukh himself. Because he has a habit, when we go for a game, the bus leaves. The bus leaves exactly at 6 p.m. for an 8 p.m. game. And he loves to come to the bus and meet all the players, give them a hug, wish you all the best type. And the first time around, he comes at 6:10, which was very prompt by his standards. Everyone's sitting in the bus. And so he saw this thing, whoa. So then I told him, when we say 6, they're all here at 5 minutes to 6. Kya yaar, bahut professional kar rahe hain in logon ko. It's like, this should be fun. Why are you doing all this? But guess what? 5:59, he's there. So it has a way of shaping behavior. So when you talk about execution, little things, but on the fan side, what we did was, it was a big cultural thing. I think cricket has been a seller's market in India particularly. You announce a game, you open the ticket counters, people line up, sleep overnight to buy tickets. At least that's how I used to do as a kid. I don't think this generation is that way. My son is heavily into basketball. He watches cricket but is not as fanatic as I was. And I would imagine the same is true of many of you or your children at home. So I said, listen, I've grown up in an environment where customer is king. So I told my team, which was for them, I said in Calcutta we have the biggest stadium, 70,000 people. And we have 8 games within a span of 6 weeks. So I said, we've got to fill up the stadium, which means over 500,000 people in 6 weeks' time have to come and buy tickets. So this is what I want to do. I said, when a customer today can pick up the phone, call for a pizza, have it delivered at home and pay cash, I want them to be able to do that for tickets. So we introduced that concept this year. So there's a phone line. So someone calls, even 1 ticket, delivered at home, cash collected. It cost us a bit more, but I guess what? Every game that we played was sold out. And we had like 10 Innova vans, which was all branded KKR, roaming around the city. And roaming around the city just to create awareness. And in places where there was a certain amount of crowd, suddenly it converted into a mobile ticket van. So we opened up the trunk and there were people in there who could actually sell tickets. So these are a couple of ideas that we've done. So it's very exciting to see the finish and the rewards of all the hard work that has gone in. And obviously, needless to say, this is all about the full team. And it's not about just what I'm saying. I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people who work very, very hard on these aspects because they're also very passionate. I have a short video to show you on a motivational thing that we did. And I'll just conclude and then show you that. I'm a big believer in relationships. And it's all about people. At the end of the day, it's all about people. And you can see a Jacques Kallis or a Brett Lee or a Gautam Gambhir or a Brendan McCullum. These are legends in their own rights. And you see them going out there and performing. But they also have a family. They have family, they have loved ones and various things. So when you're able to show a little bit of that family concept, And we've tried to build that atmosphere within KKR. It goes a long, long way. So one of the things that I did this time around was to, I wanted to do a family video and show it to them before the finals. And just to say, these are the people who are behind you completely. And it was a complete surprise to them. Within 24 hours to 30 hours, we got it all done in various countries. Thanks to technology, we were able to collate it all together. And I'll just show you, it's fairly emotional and all that. But so I think basically, let me just show you that video and end with.
One day your story will be told as one of the few who've made the name. One day they'll make you glorious beneath the lights of your deserved fame. And it all comes round once in a lifetime, like it always does. Everybody loves you because you've taken a chance to dance out on the moon. You've all played for your team, you've all played for the fans, and today you will play for the ones who love you.
The players were seeing this for the first time. This is shown during the team meeting before the final.
All the best, Chachu.
Good luck, Pet.
Good luck, Jockey. Fire. Isn't Mama best of luck?
अच्छे से खेलना, जख्मी जान लड़ा देना and KKR को जिता के लाना.
Love you, Goti Mama. All the best. KKR.
The team has been exceptional and you deserve to be where you are today.
राजा, ये मैच तो जीती नहीं आए.
मम्मी भगवान जी के पीछे पड़ चुकी हैं, 20-25 मन्नतें मांग चुकी हैं, so we will win, don't worry about it, and all the best.
Good luck, guys. I wish we could be there. We know you'll do well. We're really, really proud of you guys. Yeah, see ya.
Bingo. This is Big Brother. Good luck, buddy. Listen, guys, I think you've got a fantastic chance to take out this premiership this year. Guys, good luck. Play well. Play hard. Bring home the bacon, and I'll be very, very proud supporter of the Calcutta Knight Riders.
We feel proud that my son is playing the cricket from Kolkata Knight, and we wish the team all the best, and we pray to God that the team will win this tournament.
All the best of luck for the finals, and we can't wait to come back home.
So you go out there, you like Mohammed, get your wickets, and God bless you.
Guys, just a quick message from me. I'd like to wish you all the best for the final. Fantastic effort in reaching it. And I've been watching with a keen eye over here, and all you boys have been performing fantastically.
আমি দোয়া করি তোমরা সবাই ভালো খেলে IPL এ চ্যাম্পিয়ন হয়ে শাহরুখ খানকে গর্বিত করবে.
All the best, guys. Go well and bring home the bacon.
All the very best to KKR, and I love you, Chachu, and I love you, Shahrukh. So all the very, very best, and you'll win the final.
Gautam, we are very proud of you, the way you've played, and you need not worry. Just go enjoy yourself, and we're waiting for you to bring home the cup.
जीत के आना है, याद रखना, खाली हाथ नहीं आना है, और अच्छे से खेलना है. जो लास्ट मैच खेले थे उससे भी अच्छा खेलना है. KKR को ट्रॉफी देना है, इज्जत का सवाल है. शाहरुख खान को दिखा देना है, सबको दिखा देना है. कौन बोलो तो बोल जीत बोले.
Thank you very much. Really
One
enjoyed
day your
the
story
opportunity. So once again, thanks for the opportunity.
A couple of questions. Yes, Aditya.
So Venky, I mean, I guess, the thing being of a sport team, and I guess especially in the one of yours, there's always, big heroes, right? There are several heroes, and possibly there are several egos to deal with as well. So how do you kind of bring it all together where there are stars, but where the stars don't, outshine the team? Because at the end of it, as you said, there are lots of people working hard.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it just in the context of your owner, but even in the players and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think this was one of the things that we drew from the first 3 years' experience, because a lot of this is what I heard. Believe it or not, when we were doing our analysis for picking the team, we had one column in there, I called it X Factor. And I said, if we have to build Team KKR, we have to identify people, give them some points, or will they fit into the team concept? So in some cases, consciously, we had to leave out some players. We just had to. And I'm saying this very honestly, and that's what it is. I think the second thing that has helped us is, there are some tremendous leaders in the team, quiet leaders. I mean, for me, my biggest hero there is Jacques Alice. A lot of people don't realize 43 test hundreds, and the guy has taken 550 international wickets, doesn't say a word. He's so humble, and when you have people around like that, the other guys will follow suit. I suppose we were fortunate. We'll see one more year of contract, and then we have to go back to auction again. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, we'll now leave it to the audience. One, or Sangeeta's already sort of showing signs. We'll probably take one more question. Yes, sir.
Hello. Venky, a nice presentation. And must be very exciting to actually work with Shah Rukh Khan. I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan of T20 or of Shah Rukh Khan, so to speak of. But I've heard that you said you broke even a couple of years back. But I've heard that the money in T20 is actually making through a lot of other means, and not by, just when you win and all that. So I was just kind of, I know it is out of context, but I was just kind of, if you can throw some light on the kind of money that is being,
Yeah, so, I think, for me, as I said, one of the attractions of moving into this was not just getting involved with cricket and being part of the glamorous side. In fact, a lot of people say, we don't see you on TV. I said, that's because I figured out where the cameras are and I avoid that, Because my wife's advice to me was, there are enough high-profile people, you maintain low profile, So I always listen to her. I think from a business standpoint, basically what happens, I don't know if you can see me, is, there are 3 streams of revenue. One is that you get a broad share of the broadcasting that happens. And it's a very straightforward formula for that. But then there is another marketing end of it, where you see all the logos on our uniform. And I was yesterday visiting all our sponsors, who incidentally all happen to be in Gurgaon. And so you make money off of sponsorship, because we give them a lot of other deliverables. And finally, the ticket revenue. So these are the standard cookie cutter model. And then on the expense side, you have your franchise fee to pay, you have your player costs, and you have your operating expenses. So if it is managed well for the first 8 teams, you're expected to make a little bit of money, or at least break even. But it's very difficult, because player costs have gone from 5 million in year 1 to 11 million now. So, and it's uncontrollable, and so it's just going up. So for us, constantly it's about finding new streams of revenue. And one of the things that we have done, particularly it started with the social media initiatives and digital marketing initiatives, to monetize our fan base through merchandising and licensing. And that has become a new stream for us. In fact, on social media right now, we've become #1 on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, through the initiatives. We've got about 1.2 million followers on Facebook alone. And we know how to build the community today. And so there are opportunities there, because as you rightly said, this is something that I'm constantly seeking in terms of new product ideas that can help us to go to the next level and create new streams of revenue for us. We've done some interesting things in local concept. We have created a GPS type of a little system. When you go into Facebook, you see all our international players. If there's a fan who wants to follow where the KKR players are, you'll be able to see where they are. And when they were playing an England match, for example, with Jacques Alice and Owen Morgan, who were both in our team, we created a small event there. So our fans, about 150 of them, who wanted to come and meet them, we had a little meet and greet where they came in and they met, photograph, autograph type of opportunity. But that will turn into something else. So it is a very interesting business model, which is still at its infancy.
Thank you so much. I think it's been a very fascinating session. And due to lack of time, we have to end this. And I'm sure both Venky and Aditya are available during the break.